have a question that I know a lot of our viewers have as well. Why isn't Special Counsel Jack Smith moving the 11th Circuit to do expedited briefing on this appeal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Good to be with you. Always nice to be on your show. You pointed it out in your intro. The timing is not ideal. Even in the best case scenario, the most expedited possible appeal would not be concluded before the election, and probably would not be concluded before the swearing of the next president, whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. So I guess for those reasons, they must have made a tactical decision not to go overboard and try to expedite it further. I think the more important question, which I'm sure you were about to ask or get to, is when they make the appeal, are they going to simultaneously ask for the recusal of or the disqualification of Judge Cannon, who was alone in her legal view and legal conclusion about the unconstitutionality of the special counsel? And I think there's a reasonable chance that they will do that.
Preet, I also wanted to have you on because you had a storied and incredibly successful career at the DOJ. And if we look at Project 2025, it's explicit. It lays out a roadmap of how Trump is going to control the DOJ, centralize and control within the executive branch. It actually says in the Project 2025 blueprint, quote, while the supervision of litigation is a DOJ responsibility, the department falls under the direct supervision and control of the President of the United States as a component of the executive branch. Litigation decisions must be made consistent with the president's agenda. I mean, Preet, how would a second Trump presidency framed by Project 2025 destroy any independence of a Department of Justice?
For all those reasons you just described. Donald Trump has tried to distance himself from Project 2025 because he's seeing how unpopular it is, deeply unpopular it is with the electorate at large. Meanwhile, the Heritage Foundation that's responsible for Project 2025 was also largely responsible for the makeup of the Supreme Court on the conservative side. And the people who have written many of the portions of Project 2025 are very, very close former advisors of Donald Trump. And by the way, this whole idea of controlling the Justice Department from the White House, from the Oval Office, notwithstanding decades and decades of norms to the contrary, is something that Donald Trump deeply believes in himself. And he tried to get Jim Comey to do things. He tried to get Jeff Sessions to not recuse himself. He tried to get Bill Barr and others who were prepared to go only so far along with Donald Trump's agenda. So this is something, and by the way, my origin story of being back in the private sector was that Donald Trump tried to call me, the sitting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, presumably to have an untoward relationship and cultivate me to do his bidding eventually. And I didn't take the call. I wouldn't speak to him because I thought it was inappropriate without knowing the subject of the call. And I was terminated. So as much as he wants to distance himself from this radical weaponization idea of Project 2025, every impulse and inclination on his part is completely in line with it.
Preet, you got the chance to sit down on your amazing podcast, Stay Tuned with Preet, with the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. No spoilers here, because I think everybody should subscribe and listen to your podcast. But I wanted to quickly get your thoughts on having a former prosecutor as a candidate for POTUS, like we have in Kamala Harris, and even Doug Emhoff's background as a lawyer for more than 30 years and him serving as such an effective advocate for his wife's policies.
So I think she's uniquely situated, excuse me, to talk about some of these issues we've been discussing. Back in 2020, when she was running in the Democratic primary, I think her qualifications and track record and expertise and background as a prosecutor was not quite as, I think, propulsive for somebody running in the Democratic primary. But now in a general election, 4 years later, when you have a presumptive, or not presumptive, but an actual Republican nominee who's been convicted of a series of crimes in one jurisdiction, has cases pending against him of a criminal nature in 3 other jurisdictions, the setting and the posture of a prosecutor versus somebody who's a convicted felon and could be convicted 3 more times is a lot more compelling. And I think she can bring to bear her reputation and experience in fighting for the rule of law, holding corrupt people accountable, holding the rich and powerful people accountable in a way that was not as resonant back in 2020, given the nature of the election and the nature of the primaries. So I think it's a very powerful thing. And I do encourage people to listen to Doug Emhoff on the podcast because he is a strong, strong advocate and a powerful and articulate one on behalf of Vice President Kamala Harris in this election, and also talks about issues that are incredibly important, including the rise of anti-Semitism and the fight for reproductive rights. So he's a powerful force and ally of the vice president.
He really is exceptional, and I think he is a great complement to, hopefully, President Kamala Harris. Preet Bharara, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks,
and I urge everybody to tune in and listen to your podcast. Thanks for being here.